In an NRM regime. The job he applied for and got without any good father, it was NRM regime. So UPC, man, at least for once, you say, yes, yeah, I agree. I know there are many wrongs in government, in NRM, but at least give them credit where...
The point is, I will disappoint you. I'll disappoint you because if this gentleman left the Electoral Commission because of the extremes of the masses, there's no way in which I can give credit to that. What I'm trying to do and to tell the young people, including your camera person and the many other people who are watching, is this: that it is possible to be good, and it's possible for a critical number of us to be good and say no to a broken system.
So nice to meet you, Comrade.
And me too. Yeah, thanks so much.
How is UPC now? The last time I heard is you went to court. What has court said so far? Or they have said nothing?
The Ugandan court is as
good as UK. That's what you were about to say. It's just terrible.
No, the Ugandan court is terrible.
Terrible?
Yeah. The judicial system, maybe if it was the same in 1981, Museveni would have gone to
was there a court in 1981?
Yeah, of course. It was the functioning systems.
If there was court in 1981, Museveni wouldn't have gone to the bush to remove a very good court judicial system.
No, Museveni did not go to court Museveni did not go to court to bring in anything. Museveni went to court to bring in what we have now for himself, not my tea, because my tea is safe with you. We have been in court. I've been waiting for an outcome of a judicial review, which should have been disposed of within 6 months.
How far is it?
And it has now taken 4 years and 2 months.
4 years and 2 months.
Yes, and I made a complaint after 2 years. I made a formal complaint after another year. And last year we had a letter that my judge had recused himself in error.
Which judge is that?
Dr. Singiza, simply because we were asking him to...
He recused himself in error? What do you mean?
Because...
you think it's allowed for the judge to recuse himself?
There are only conditions. You can't recuse yourself when the matter is pending disposal.
Yeah, when you have been hearing the matter all from the beginning up to the end.
Yes.
Now, when you're about to give your ruling, then you say, I've recused myself.
I've recused myself.
You have wasted the taxpayers' money, you have wasted our time. Both the parties in court, you have wasted their time, but you have also wasted our resources as a country.
And you've denied me justice. That's why I'm saying now I need to go to the bush. But I need to go to the bush maybe 10 times. Museveni's bush. Because of the excess of land. Because Museveni had no grounds to go to the bush. Because he never went to the court in Barara. He never came to the court in Kampala. I went to the court and I've now waited for 4 years. Museveni, after 40 years, he can't explain in the circumstances under which there was any reasonable justification that he necessarily chose to go to court. Now, Dr. Singiza has been promoted, and the principal judge, whom I also complained to, is now the Deputy Chief Justice.
Who is that?
He's also Dr. Zain somebody.
Zeiza.
Dr. Zeiza. Very disappointing. I went to him when I went to him informally. He was very sensible and he was quite appreciative of the fact that I had gone to him informally before making a formal complaint. And I was being very generous, but this sort of is where we are. So 4 years, 2 months, UPC's leadership case is basically being held hostage. But also, apart from asking for a declaration that I was elected president, I also asked for an independent injunction against Jimmy McKenna. So you can imagine, I went to court to seek an injunction.
Yes,
an injunction takes 4 years and 2 months. So Jimmy continues to operate unabated, as a leader of the party. You now see the headlines are talking about a roadmap and other things. So you now wonder, do you now apply? Yes, and do you now apply for another injunction? What is it? So that's not really the unfortunate thing.
Jimmy is here leading UPC party to an electoral roadmap, and he has been elected and proposed to stand for presidents on UPC ticket. Yet
High Court ruled that his election was irregular. He appealed. The Court of Appeal also took another 4 years, from 2016 to 2020. And then eventually, after 4 years, it dismissed his application. But Jimmy still continued.
It means he lost.
He lost.
But he still continued.
Indeed. And that Court of Appeal is the one that asked for fresh elections.
And you handled it.
And I participated in that election, and that's the election that I won.
The elections were conducted.
Yes.
And you emerged the winner.
I emerged the winner. And Jimmy continues. I can't, I've not.
So when you could not take seat, you went to court.
I went to court.
It is now 4 years.
It's now 4 years.
Since you went to court.
Yes.
Now Jimmy is here
continuing
the UPC party into an electoral process 2026.
Yeah, now the third term actually, if I take it as the third term. Because he occupied Uganda House in 2015. And by the constitution of the party also says has term limits unless amended. So
how many terms?
2 terms.
2 terms.
So technically, even if he had been elected president,
the 2 terms are over.
The 2 terms are over. But that is the mess in which the judicial system has left us. And then, as I said, so he's gone through this. So he also went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court also ruled against him. But now his people are saying, they match the Supreme Court. So some of his boys, mainly, he's got boys who come out to make pronouncements and become expert legal propagandists to push a particular agenda, which he knows basically self-interest agenda, trying to claim that the ruling was on a matter A, B, C, D, and then you try and matter in legalistic terms when you've never been to law school. But that's sort of the situation with us as UPC, unfortunately.
So now, Mr. Ochieno, Uganda, from August, is going to be, from the taxpayers' money, is going to be giving, first of all, a security convoy, a vehicle, and money and fuel to a presidential candidate for UPC, isn't it? And to everybody else. Because once the Electoral Commission now nominates you, you're entitled to public resources. But now, tell me, legally, how are we going to handle when the person who is standing as a presidential flag bearer for UPC is legally, through court, challenged? So Electoral Commission, if they confirm him, would they have been out of the law?
That's the law of the jungle that operates in Uganda today. In any case, actually, the Electoral Commission, interestingly, in 2020 nominations, they accepted Jimmy's stamps rather than Walobiri or Lara stamp. So technically, the Electoral Commission recognizes Jimmy rather than anybody else, in complete disregard to the due process of the law. And the chairperson of the Electoral Commission is a nice guy, Simon Bimakam. Yeah, he's a nice gentleman, and I'm told he was once upon a senior judge. And so these guys just operate like zombies. So sometimes when I use those words, I am no. I'm saying these guys. I'm not saying him, but I'm talking about the system. But I'm saying no. Let me tell you this. Simon is a friend.
That's
okay.
No.
I'll tell you that even if I referred to Simon, if you see what happened when Amuriat was being nominated in a presidential candidate of the then largest political party, opposition party, he gets nominated barefoot. The Electoral Commission is the supreme body responsible for election. The person in charge of the entire operation was not security. The the person in charge of that operation to target is the Electoral Commission.
And
the chairman should take...
Electoral Commission chairman
must take exception.
Yes.
I have argued recently that what happened in Kawempe, again, of course we know it's a state thing.
Commission.
Security should not have been in charge. Simon should have said, no, we don't want you guys there. So is there evidence that Simon said, we don't want police, but we want these guys in dark glasses that would scare little teenage boys and girls in the streets of Kampala, traumatizing them as if we were at war in Machinde, rather in Kawempe. You know, so that goes to the Electoral Commission. And if that is the case, and you're pretending not to know and not to see what's happening, then you're either inhuman or you're a machine. Then you're a robot. And maybe you're part of the advancement of artificial intelligence. So if I look, and you're being and you're being engineered from somewhere, you're taking instruction. So point as Ugandans and as Africans, we should not be going through these things in a country like Uganda, and we should not go through this kind of thing in a country like Uganda, where the people in charge went to the bush allegedly because of election fraud. You know, which we know it wasn't. But at least try and show us that, well, try and justify what you did by behaving slightly different way. You know? But also, if you see what happens in Kenya and other places, and Kenya is not necessarily the best example, the Chief Justice comes and says, no, we're not going to tolerate this. You know, maybe police commissioner says, no, I'm not going to take that. And the police thing says, I know somebody in the Electoral Commission, the person left. The person is a friend of mine. Fantastic, decent Ugandan Pan-Africanist and Ugandan nationalist. That gentleman refused, this is a breaking news, this gentleman refused instructions of his boss to alter results of cleaning of electoral register somewhere within Uganda. Now, he was a senior officer, and when the by-elections are pending, the Electoral Commission sends people. So it turns out in that particular place, he led the delegation somehow, either because of staff shortage, whatever the case. But he led. Normally doesn't go. He wouldn't go to the field, but he went to the field with others. So time came when they wanted to use an old register that includes people who had died. This guy said, "No, I headed this delegation. You know, I personally inclusive in part of this report. We did it. We did it. Authorized and saw it. I know how many people are dead, and we went ahead and took pictures of graves and things like that. I can't alter that, you know." So when he was pushed, this thing reached up to the then chairperson and secretary of the Electoral Commission at the time, and he refused. And this guy one Saturday had to be summoned from his home from outside Kampala to come to the Electoral Commission meeting, basically do this with the head of legal and things. And the guy refused. They said, well, if you want me to do this thing, put it to me in writing. Instruct me in writing that I should alter this. Now that's a Ugandan. Your cameraman is a fantastic young Ugandan, and viewers don't watch him or see him. These are the people for whom Ochieno comes and speaks like this. You know, you and I, we are going to do 50% because certain elements basically reversible. But we must be examples of the future of this country.
Why are you a coward enough not to reveal the name of that person? Are you coward, Mr.
No. For who? The person who did that?
Yeah.
No, he left the Electoral Commission.
Yeah, we need to know. And so we go and appreciate that man.
You want us to go and appreciate?
Yeah.
He's a fantastic guy.
I'll go and have some tea with him. Who is that guy?
No, I don't have his permission. It's final principle. But I think actually after this interview, I'll
tell you off camera.
I'll tell you off camera, and maybe we can talk to him, and maybe you can interview him. By the way, he's a very important Ugandan national. There's something else. That individual, when he was working in another government department, he was asked by a very senior minister. He was asked by a very senior minister to divert 60 million shillings of emergency aid to some place in Uganda. Again, he refused.
I would like to know that hero.
Yes, he refused.
You mentioned that hero.
No. We'll talk about
Such
it.
people need to be appreciated.
Maybe we can come.
Because in this country, Uganda, people who are working government, we think that the entire regime is rotten. Nobody's sane. You yourself, you have said that some of them work like zombies. So that person might be added on the zombies list. Yet actually it's not.
That's interesting. By the way, he left that ministry and applied for a job at the Electoral Commission. Okay? That particular
the former Electoral Commission chairman.
No. This particular individual I'm talking about. And you'll talk to him, And the point is, the minister one time met him on the lift. A very senior person. Very senior name. The minister now passed. The minister now arrested. And this guy wanted to push him.
Why?
Because he was annoyed with him. They wanted basically him to leave. So, And then he said, Joseph, by the way, this guy was a professor before becoming a part of the NRA government. He said, look, 60 million shillings of money, aid money equivalent to the Karamojo thing and then whatever. I said, I couldn't do it. The guy wanted to die, but merely 60 million shillings. Now, of course, that's a lot of money, but you can understand the context when this guy is loot in terms of billions. So there's some interesting Ugandans. But why bring him? And then he left there, and he told me that when he applied for the job at the Electoral Commission, of course, some of these big jobs, people think that they're cadres, you need to know whatever. He didn't know. He applied and got the job on merit. And he said for a very long time when it was the Electoral Commission, people thought maybe he had special clearance from State House and whatever kind of stuff,
so which he didn't. That shows some kind of goodness in the regime.
In what way?
Because people have been saying you can't get a government job unless you have a
no, you can't.
Now, this guy is here telling you, I applied normally, got a job, and did my job professionally. I even refused to put it to effect illegal things.
I don't know whether that.
So you are giving credit to NRM somehow?
No. I am giving credit to individual Ugandans, who, unlike many others, including current people in the Electoral Commission and the judiciary and
that's
elsewhere,
true, but those good deeds he did them in an NRM regime. The job he applied for and got without any good father, it was NRM regime. So UPC, man, at least for once, you say yes, I agree. I know there are many wrongs in government, in NRM, but at least give them credit where.
The point is, I'll disappoint you. I'll disappoint you because if this gentleman left the Electoral Commission because of the extremes of the masses, there's no way in which I can give credit to that. What I'm trying to do and to tell the young people, including your camera person and the many other people who are watching, is this: that it is possible to be good, and it's possible for a critical number of us to be good and say no to a broken system. That's sort of really the point that I was raising.
Okay.
Granted, in NRA, they're good people. In NRA,
that's the point you are raising.
Yes.
I agree, you have raised your point.
Yeah.
I also want to raise one more.
Yeah.
That actually, in NRM regime, not everything is bad. There are some good things. That you can come and apply for a job as Ochieno without a good father. You get a job. You got the Electoral Commission, you refuse to effect some bad things, and you still walk out with your head high.
No, he left. You feel threatened, then you left.
But you don't die, you are not poisoned, you go and live your life.
I don't think dying and poison should be the benchmark for us to determine how governments perform in this world.
Yeah.
Certainly not even in Idi Amin's time. I think one of his former ministers also writes, I think, forgotten his name actually, a guy from Maru, who said that he met Amin and also refused to execute Amin's things, and Amin didn't do anything.
Refusing to effect Amin is
yes, and he didn't do anything.
And nothing happens.
I'll remember his name, and maybe it's actually an old gentleman whom we might want to go and talk to.
That must be one in a million.
Well, just like under Henry in my
you refused to effect Amin. And you survive.
He survived according to him, but for whatever reason. But he's a very old man. He's around. I've just forgotten his name. I think he's an old man, so he's arrived. So anyway, I think that we need to have to build a pool of good men and women.
All right. Now, in conclusion, on that part of UPC, generally, if someone asked you to describe how UPC is now, structure-wise, leadership-wise, how would you describe it? Who would you say is the leader?
UPC is a sick political party.
Sick?
Yeah. UPC is a sick political party. I have said it for a very long time. It's a political party that Mr. Museveni hoped that maybe he would sink it by River Nile, but because we are an idea, we can't die. And I want to link it to the second part of our conversation, which is about the conversation by our political position about this business of
the protest vote.
The protest vote, yes.
How would you?
But let me just screw that to bring it to that. Political party. So we are an idea, we can't die, and we couldn't. But number two, that I am trying to pull UPC from off the sink, bring it out from intensive care unit, put it on the table, cleanse it, and then an idea, a Pan-Africanist, idealistic, social democratic political party, the party of the common man's charter, more relevant today than 60 years ago. That is the UPC that we have. But it's sick because one is leaderless, and it's sick because Museveni is really trying to beat it as much as he possibly could.
Museveni cannot try to bring you down when actually he's elevating you. Two of your senior leaders, Peter Mongin, Simakena, all working with him. He's facilitating you financially and everything. So
I wish I was facilitated financially. I would buy me a cup of tea. Thank you very much for the tea. It's fantastic tea. Thank you. That tea was courtesy of the spy and my fantastic brother Andre Rumba.
So now, Mr. Ochieno, this links up to us to the talk now in town about the protest vote. The minor opposition leader party today, is suggesting nothing else for 2026 elections but a protest vote. In your own context, because protest vote, when you open the lead and look into their protest vote agenda, is that number one, how to describe that this is a protest vote, that when you go on that day, first of all, you should go in huge numbers so that you overwhelm them. Vote in huge numbers. After voting, don't leave. Count the vote and celebrate the victory right there. That when you do those, you have done a protest vote. And of course, your vote must not be in favor of the regime, but against the regime. When you do all those above, you have done a fantastic job in supporting the protest vote. So, Ochieno, is that what we've been missing in Uganda? Very direct question.
You're a very difficult journalist. You're taunting me with the definition of protest vote.
For all the years we've suffered with attempts to change government leadership and we've failed, that is the missing link we've been missing.
Protest?
Yes.
No. Look, credit to my friends in NUP. They are now the largest opposition political party. Credit to them, they swept through Uganda. Credit to them, they've managed sort of to psychologically make a good proportion, not yet critical, but a good portion of young Ugandans believe that it's them, part of them. And then they have also nearly succeeded in certain parts of particularly Uganda and many other urban spaces that if you're young, jobless, UPE has been a disaster for you.
You don't need to be jobless for you to support the opposition.
No, I'm giving context on a different third one.
No, when you say if you're young and jobless, what about if you're young and you have a job?
No.
Must you not support the...
No, I was bringing the third point, which is the hustler point. One, that if you're young, it's them. Two,
jobless,
young, jobless, whatever. Chagulanyi started strongly, badly from the slums and sort of succeeded. And so you can get to youth and then hustler stuff. So there's a number of young people who've linked
than all other
who've linked into that. I'm not quite sure whether it's a majority young people.
Yeah, the majority of young people are in ghettos. And ghettos mainly, you may not even be in ghetto, but you may be somewhere but suffering like those in ghetto.
Indeed, and
there are many things that you resonate with.
I'm trying to be objective. I'm trying to say that, well, I don't think it is yet critical, because I don't want these guys to be complacent, that the majority of young people follow them, because not yet. So to that level, they've done very well. Now, when it comes to the context of, for me, one, I am UPC. Two, you could argue reasonably that I'm a UPC ideologue. But number two, you could argue that I have a reasonable understanding and experience of politics. And three, as a Pan-Africanist, I think politics of issues is the politics, yes, is one in which it requires you to put something on the table. And so, to me, and still reasonable advice to my friends in NUP, I think that they still need to do a lot more work to sell what they truly represent. Because even me, I am not quite sure what genuinely NUP stands for.
Because you are so much into UPC, you can't understand the other people's agenda.
No.
You are UPC by birth, by nature, by blood.
Yes.
You don't want anybody to deviate you from your UPC.
No.
So definitely I will understand when you don't understand.
No, that's true. Now
I will understand you when you don't understand them.
Now you're abusing me. But you know what I'm trying to say? That I've refused to understand them is my fault.
Yeah.
They're all glittered up. No, that is actually not true. Look. No. You told me you are the spokesperson for a living Obote, Milton Obote. You are the spokesperson for a dead Milton Obote. So, in other words, for life, I represent the values of Milton Obote, dead and alive. But I also represent the values of Uganda People's Congress. But I don't think that's the point. The point is that the fact that I represent a coherent political party, the only political party with ideology in this country, means that it allows me to understand others. So I look at the others in that image. I look at the others in that image, that what do the others represent? So because you support UPC does not mean that you cannot understand NRM and their failures, and that you cannot understand if they do well in something else. In any case, decent politicians should be able sometimes even to steal ideas from elsewhere. Like NRA tried to steal UPE from us, but unfortunately it was just like a borrowed shot. When borrowed shot becomes it
can't fit you properly.
It becomes terrible, So NUP guys need to be selling slightly more in terms of what they represent. And I also suggest that NUP needs to be selling Chagulanyi as more than a young person, more than the guy who came from the ghetto, more than the fantastic musician, more than the known name.
I think that's what they've been doing.
But I'm saying they need to do more than that. So brings me to your point about the protest votes. In election terms...
Is that what has been missing?
In election terms, voters want substance.
Not form.
Voters want alternatives. Even after 40 years of NRA, which terribly failed, it is the responsibility of anybody who wants to be in government to convince people like the young camera person who may be voting for the first time that, look, we are different, and we are different for reasons A, B, C, D. So to simply say that, well, anything but, it works. But unfortunately for NRA, because they've been in power for such a long time, actually even 20 years in power is too long. But in most democracies, and since you asked me to talk about Britain, in Britain, in recent times, no individual, one leader has stayed in the Prime Minister's office for more than 12 years. None. Blair and Margaret Thatcher were the longest serving Prime Ministers, and both of them about 11 years. Meaning that by sort of the 8th year, citizens are genuinely tired with you, however miraculously performing. And so Africans need to learn these things. So this business of us actually having...
However good you are.
However good you are. And in many cases, you also say that, look, I have done my bit, I want to allow others to come and build onto the great work we've done from it, if it's maybe your main political party. Because it doesn't have to be that you lose power to another political party. Blair handed over to my fantastic, Margaret Thatcher handed over to John Major. In fact, both of them went on to serve terms, and then, of course, Rachel lost elections. So in fact, Margaret Thatcher didn't even serve. Was it 11 years? No, actually, it wasn't 11. Conservatives were there for 11 years, but yeah. So just to say that protest. So protest vote is important, but I think the coining of this ought to be better than merely just a protest vote. We are protesting for reasons A, B, C, D, and when you successfully do this, this is what we'll do different from what NRA has done in the last 40 years. So you can see where I'm coming from an advisor perspective. And recently I was actually on Cap to Gang with a member of NUP, and granted my slot was slightly later than hers. I'm not quite sure whether I got a sense of clarity about messaging, but of course, my problem is that I attended non-UPE education and I attended non-UPE English in Nagongre, Nwiri, and Makerere.
So what's the point you're making?
Meaning that possibly I am spoiled by being quite critical
when it comes to observing and analysis.
It's not about spoken English, because sometimes people catch me into that, but it's actually academic English as it should be. So and then too, as somebody who's a researcher and an academic, as a scholar, I can safely say that. I would tell again your camera person, who's a fantastic young person, that when you're going to discuss protest votes, the first thing when you're doing an assignment is protest votes. What is likely to be the impact of protest votes in Uganda? Yeah, at the next elections. The first thing is the definition of terms. Protest votes. What does it mean? When you talk about impact, what does it mean? In Uganda, what is Uganda supposed is hypothetically a non-Uganda? What is the contextual thing about what's been happening in this country? And the Ugandan elections, and what's happening? What is election? You see, so you first of all need to appreciate those terms before then you come in to start an introduction. You see where I'm coming from? And this is important for people. And why I'm being objectively critical is not to criticize, but to wake us up and to make better whatever argument our friends in NUP are suggesting. In any case, we are in all these things, in all this together. And in any case, I would expect some people in NRA also say that time is...
So I want you to be as crystal clear as anything. In all your explanation, I'm looking for... What's your take? Do you think a protest vote is what has been the missing link? Do you think this time round we have them? I I want the viewer to understand that this is
you've really seen that what I've said. I've said the use of protest votes as a center is misplaced. So I don't think the issue, what has been lacking, is protest votes. For me, someone like UPC, I would say that, look, there was never a time when it was justifiable to support NRM. So, in fact, the other thing, actually, if you say protest over what? Corruption. Usually protest votes is about corruption, particular things, which is another point I'm coming to. Remember the corruption, nepotism. A scandal, nepotism, maybe, some particular, maybe the prime minister or the president in this case has been caught in some immoral stuff, and then voters, then they handle it badly, and then voters react by voting them out.
Protest vote.
So that can arguably be considered protest vote.
NUP is planning a protest vote to vote out this regime that has been here for the last 40 years, mishandling issues of
But that's interesting, because actually they go on to describe what we need to do. What they're describing for us to do is basically what we should be doing anyway. And I think they're absolutely right that, look,
maybe we've not been doing
well, whether not it's being done or not is the answer about what the man in which NUP is saying it. That, look, when election comes, you should know that NRA has been in power for such a long time. They've been very corrupt. They sold your railways. They sold the airlines. They sold your bank. They had the money for the poor, of the poor from Karamoja. So you should
that they took their unsheets.
They took their unsheets. Excuse me. should be angry enough and resolved enough, and particularly you young guys, if you're 20, it's about your future which is being grabbed. Mobilize and organize. Make sure you participate in the elections. Make sure that when elections, make sure you register. Make sure that you go to the elections, you guard your votes. And when you guard your votes, make sure that there's no rigging. Make sure that when they give you money, you're not compromised by that because you're looking long term. That is what we as political leaders should be doing. And from UPC perspective, we've been trying to do that thing. I don't think we've been able to.
You've only been trying.
No, yeah, but I don't think we've done sufficient enough of that, to be fair. You know, but for me, away from the mess in the UPC, most of which are also blame Museveni and personal interest individuals, I'm also saying that genuinely, I don't think as UPC, we have been angry enough and desperate enough and hungry enough for change. Likewise, I would push that across all Ugandans who purportedly say that they need change. Because I go around the country and you see whether there's an NUP, the DP, and FEDC.
They're not angry enough.
I don't think people are angry enough. A few leaders are, and sometimes a few members are. But when you're a member of the party and you say you want change, and Ochieno comes to Nagongra and, you know, if he doesn't give you a cup of tea, you don't turn up for a meeting, you know, or you want him to provide you with transport, about a journey which should be taking you 20 minutes, you know, kind of stuff, or you want him to pay for the sitting. You're not serious. So you think that it's about Ochieno, but no, the Musevenis, to their credit, you know, these guys were a minority. These guys had no case, you know, at all. You know, these guys were extremely unpopular. You know, the UPC government was very popular. You know, post-Amin Ugandans wanted to come together. But the Musevenis and the Rujemas and Kagames they knew what they wanted. So they organized themselves as small cocoons, used girls, used a bit of deals here and there, used their tricks, broke a few people's necks here together, worked around their own internal discipline, risked, went to Luweero, broke people's necks, you know, came, you know, went to abroad, maybe danced with a few Bazungu in exchange for whatever else, and then favors and things like that, promised them everything, including Pineti and oils and everything else, and they got what they want. So to that, I give them credit. So for ordinary,
smarter than you.
Ordinary smartness, Museveni's economics of Dar es Salaam. I don't know whether that's the smartness of Musevenomics of UPD or PDM. That I reject. That I reject. But anyway, no, they were determined enough, and you can also talk smartness to be fair. That Museveni has been smart enough to manipulate Ugandans, to manipulate Banyarwanda, to manipulate certain grievances, to manipulate certain pressure points in the country to his advantage. So he did that successfully. That's a credit I give to him. Now, the funny thing is that Ugandans think that Mr. Museveni is going to say, Bambi, after 40 years, I can see you suffer there. You had no power, and even Mr. Ochieno, yesterday you had no electricity. Oh, you've suffered enough, so I'll let you go. I'll go and live for you. No, Museveni won't do that. Oh, Bambi, you've been suffering like this. From now on, I'll not be giving Pineti money. I'm going to begin giving money to Kisasi General Hospital. No, it won't happen. So Ugandans need to mobilize and organize, and if that is part of and if that's part of the protest thing, let the protest be much more organized, much more clear around these issues, and that's all I'm trying to say. Calling it that we had enough and is enough of Mr. Museveni is fine, but I think these guys were looking for cliches, you know, that would click with them. And as I'm saying, I'm not criticizing the cliche. I'm just trying to tell you that it's a bit vague. Yeah.
So the protest vote is a bit vague and I think unrealistic, if you were to add that word.
No, I think it's vague. Unrealistic is not necessarily the case because it is possible it can happen, but I'm just trying to say from a messaging perspective, it doesn't serve the interest of particularly a young Ugandan who is not particularly interested in politics. It doesn't click them. I was talking to groups of university students the other day, and up to 24 students after the exams, and none of them knew that there used to be free university education, that attended free university education. And these are students of education. University education, yes, 3 days ago. 24 students, and none of them knew Ochieno started. There was free university education, meaning any of them, I didn't actually ask how many of their parents went to university. in many cases, most of their parents, if they went to university...
Actually, most of the young people now today think that it is Museveni who has come with free education.
UPE kind of
free
stuff,
education from primary up to university. They think that's why the way they have crafted the message, they don't give them history that it was once there, and even better managed than it is now.
And not only...
Today, even Museveni himself who said there should be free education. All his rallies has been going through the country. He is actually also decrying to the fact that even when the country says there should be free education, that some schools are still charging students school fees and other monies.
But it's also...
And his structure, his leadership has failed to nip that in the bud. They have failed to solve that problem.
By the part of it is
he tells in his rally that I said there should be free, but here there are some head teachers who are still charging. But if you are hearing them, what are you doing about them?
Do you know, it's actually a part of his continued misleading propaganda over the last 50 years.
Are you sure?
No, yes, because he has
been here for 50 years or 40?
No, he's been in the power for 40 years, but part of the other one was a lot of propaganda. If you take Museveni from 1972 and the stories about Museveni, which can be very unfortunate. So for some of us who knew Museveni for a long time, at least you guys give us credit, man. Give us credit, because we've been proven right from the beginning. And by the systematically, we've been proven right. But anyway, look, I met a head teacher, a primary school head teacher the other day, and I can confirm to you that UPE government pays 7,000 shillings per term.
7,000
Uganda shillings.
Or US dollar?
7,000 Uganda shillings per term.
You're making a mistake. No. 7,000 US dollar.
7,000 Uganda shillings.
Per student?
Yes, per pupil, yes.
To study?
Yes.
Or for lunch?
No, to study. That is Museveni's UPE in rural school.
7,000?
Yes.
To study?
Yes.
Not for lunch?
That is the free education. There is no lunch. Now, what Mr. Museveni is saying that headmasters, head teachers should not charge. These are building and development fees, things like that, money.
Building fund,
development, things like that. And sometimes maybe some schools say, maybe in P6 and P7, you must eat at school or something like that, yeah. And they do that for the purpose of cushioning the gap. Now, in such situations, these young people go home and parents can't afford, or go home, or sometimes they have rather irresponsible parents. Now, I've got four young people whom I rescued the other time from 3 different families. 2 of them are brothers. And all of them are 7,000.
You're paying?
And yeah. And I met them on a week school day, just last month. And I said, why aren't you guys at school? One of them happens to be from my family, in the neighborhood of my cousins. So I see them because, you know, so you guys, what's going on? Where are you? What are you doing here? Things like that, you know? So it turns out they're still not going to school.
So it means...
So I've committed myself to do that. But you know what? Actually, in rural Uganda, it is actually possible. Ask the Mabati victims, the owners of Mabati that was stolen by
Karamoja.
Yeah. And you take it to Karamoja too far. The average poor Uganda within Teso, and even part of maybe even Hoima here, because I go around the country. Bunyoro. You'll go around the country.
Because I had a Kasaija also too. But
yes. I'm talking about rural Uganda. Their parents in most parts, in fact, most of West Nile, for example, you go to a village and look around 1 homestead, 2 homestead, 3 homestead. You're a journalist. Try that. Go and ask your family, how much money do you have in your pocket? You look through 5 homesteads, and none of them has 1,000 shillings.
1,000?
No.
US dollar or Uganda?
1,000 Uganda shillings. I do these things because, as I said, this is my job, my life.
And so they expect to take the children to school?
Yes. Number 2, many of those...
Ochieno, you are mudslinging the regime because they ousted you out of power.
I wasn't ousted out of power. I was a student. I was never in government.
No, UPC. Lost power.
My party was illegally removed from government, and any Ugandan who celebrates the overthrow of UPC government, you know, that Ugandan needs prayers, because it was the democratically elected government led by UPC.
Saying you are bitter. This is why you are telling lies about this regime.
No,
you are bitter. You are bitter.
I do God. I don't do anger.
You are bitter because this regime ousted you from power.
No.
So you.
The truth is that
you have to look for only negative, and some of which is not true. Okay, what are some of the positives this regime has done? For instance, when you are driving you come from Tororo. How did you find that road?
Terrible.
From Kampala to Tororo?
Terrible.
Terrible. It is
terrible. You know, if you want to risk a bad interview, yeah, stick to NRS track record, because I think you're going to be very disappointed. Because from here to my home here.
Tororo.
No, my house is not far away from here. You know, you and I, we live in relatively posh place. Yeah. And you know how much shock absorbers will kill us. For me, I've got to replace it in a car of 2.5 years ago. Here in Kampala, infrastructure. You leave from here yesterday to Kayunga Road, trying to come back for, and I'm sorry we couldn't link up the other day over other programs, because you're a fantastic brother of mine. Kayunga Road, madness. Then I just lost my data. The other day you couldn't meet me because there's no power in Nagonga. The other day you couldn't do it because there was no network. And this is Nagonga of Tororo. But let me take you back to the ordinary people. Go to Teso, average Teso. Go to average Lango. Go to average West Nile. Go to average Busoga. Families do not have 2,000 shillings. You can do a sample 10 families. Go to sample 10 families. You will not find 2 of them with 2,000 shillings.
President Museveni has just been to from your area there, and he has been launching and promoting PDM, parish development model. I'm sure every family in your village there belongs to a certain parish. Now, there is money allocated to every parish. A parish is made up of villages. So that family that misses 1,000 shillings must be belonging to a village, and that village belongs to a parish, and that parish belongs to a sub-county, and that sub-county belongs to a county, and that county belongs to a district.
And it's there.
And so there is money right from the village to the parish, to the sub-county, to the county, to the district. Where are those people?
And it's there.
Why are they not taking part?
There is the economic illiteracy, yeah? Is the economic literacy why they're not taking parish development money, yeah? Let me tell you, I was with the youth councillor for my home, who happens to be a nephew of mine, and he voted for NRA, whether or not he voted for them this time or not, but my nephew, my cousin's son. They're waiting for the next round of PDM, and the entirety of my family, I don't know anybody who got the money. One person said he didn't have, I think, the card. Another one was fearing. But whatever the case, I know a member of my larger family who asked for the money the other month, and she was turned down. And this is a graduate of with some economic stuff. That's PDM. But I think it would be very unfair to poor Ugandans by taunting them that how dare they complain of poverty via Ochieno, yeah? When they've got 1 million shillings to borrow and create economic miracles. As if Mr. Museveni can show cause that he started these businesses with 1 million Uganda shillings and how he became a billionaire.
You don't have to start
No. I'm making a point. But it's this very same Mr. Museveni who took our money. I don't want to use the word stole, but who took our money just the other week. Can you imagine this guy? I think it's actually stealing 100 million Uganda shillings and gave 100 million Uganda shillings to his NRA MPs. That is 100 million shillings, equivalent of the amount of money that is going for Parliament.
They gave him without budget. They gave him
to abuse. Budget. So they gave him to abuse.
There is a budget called under his state house. There is a budget called the classified account. They gave that money to him to find how to use it. It's him how to use it. It's him who chooses how to use it. Actually now, what if he had taken that money and given it to Pinet? He has given it to Ugandans. Your fellow Ugandans. So what would they have done if he had given it? If he had picked all that 52 billion and given it to Pinet or to a Tanzanian? He has given it to Ugandans.
But he's given.
What's wrong with that?
He's given some to Pinet. He gave some to.
Yes, you have been complaining that he's giving foreigners. Now he has given Ugandans, your own MPs, to bring that money to the village and promote. You are saying some of your villages are poor. Now he has given this money through the MP to come and elevate these people. What's wrong?
So the 100 million was delivered to Uganda?
It is given to the Ugandans. The other day he gave it to the Pineti. You said you are giving foreigners. Now he has given Ugandans. You again complain. Should he go and throw it in the river? Because you give it to him. You give him the money. What should he do?
For the first time, I'm nearly failing to give you a response. But no.
You can't.
No, Mr. Museveni, what Museveni is doing is criminal. What Mr. Museveni is doing is criminal. Money is like that. For a country which is grossly in debt, up to, I think, 90-something trillion Uganda shillings, you can't just dish out money like that when there are no drugs in hospitals, when there are no functioning roads, when there are no functioning agricultural systems, when people are dying. The other day, in Agongora, a child died, a 6-year-old child died from cerebral malaria, and there was no medicine in Agongora, there was no medicine in Tororo. I think the medical officers in Agongora worked quite hard to try and save the child, including trying to get medicine from Bali, and there was no medicine in Bali. But this particular medical professional, I think his or her credit, I think it was him, wanted to try and get this thing from Bali himself because he knew exactly what the child died. Now tell me that that's not criminal.
So now, this money Museveni has given to these MPs, they're supposed to use that money to facilitate certain rules.
That's what I'm trying to say. You can see Museveni's government. Museveni's government operates like, basically like Luweru Chankwanzi thing. No, and Mr. Museveni allegedly studied economics, didn't he? In Dar es Salaam. Whoever. I met political science, economics and political science, by the way. So I met one of his lecturers, and this lecturer was very sick. But there's a non-Ugandan. No, he was very sick of Museveni, the student, because he thought Museveni, the student, was a sensible guy. But you met
him recently?
No, he's a Zimbabwean lecturer a few years ago, over 15 years ago.
You were very annoyed with this.
It was very sad. It was very sad. Said, I don't know what I told this guy. I don't know how they evaporated. Maybe via Mutukula. But anyway, look, no, you can't. You get a hand. You can't use public money like that. If you want to enrich a population, invest in education, invest in health, invest in infrastructure, invest in agriculture. You create jobs, enabling environment in which people then go ahead and earn. He killed our cotton industry, killed our part of our coffee establishment. He killed our cooperative services and cooperative unit. He killed our cooperative transport unit, killed our lint marketing board, and he killed these. These are the basis of wealth creation that made people Banyankole Kwetera, the Bugisu, wherever. In Fort there was Bunyoro,
Toro Development Corporation.
Across the country, fantastic ideas. This guy came.
He killed. Okay, now let's go to his rebuilding. Because he has started with the coffee development. He has established under Nelson in Ntungamo. Ntungamo.
One in Ntungamo?
Yeah.
So for me, Nagongere, my father's, because we used to have coffee around.
You drive your coffee, bring it to Ntungamo. Add value.
Add value to Ntungamo.
Yeah.
Shall I borrow your bike from Choro to Ntungamo? Shall you lend me your bike? Honestly. Because there's no train.
Do I have one? Do I have one?
The guy killed our rail services. So the people of Nagongera need to carry we need to carry our coffee, wait for those ones from Bugisu, and carry it on our backs or on our back. So just like the explorer didn't take to Ntungamo, to Nelson, just because now Nelson is better than Pineti. Is that how economics work? No, it's shambolic, really. It's really sad. But look, here we are. I think we've been one of the most unfortunate regimes we've had as a country in a very long time. But that as it may, we hope Ugandans wake up to the reality that we begin to have a conversation, which is a national conversation, that sees a post-Museveni Uganda, one in which we're interested in ourselves, interested in our future, interested in our children, interested in long term rather than ourselves. And what a government, the way it operated, where Yona Kanyomozi told me one time, and I think even gave a public interview, that he was head of a delegation to Cuba when he was Minister of Cooperatives. And so he came back, I think, on a Friday evening. So Friday evening he was not able to go to Obote. Saturday he was not able to go. Sunday. Then I think by very late Sunday or very early Monday morning he was summoned to President's office in Parliament building.
Why?
To come and give an account.
Accountability.
Accountability.
Of what?
The money, how he spent the money.
How he spent them?
Yes.
His trip to Cuba.
Yes.
And his delegation.
Yes.
How much they spent on the accommodation, the flight, the food, and where is the balance?
Yes.
The balance.
Kanyumuzi would laugh.
For the balance.
That was, yeah, so he was supposed to give the report, obviously. But the number one thing was accountability. Yeah.
If there's a balance, you take it back to the national treasury.
Take it back to the national treasury.
So you mean these things don't happen today?
Under NRA?
They don't happen?
Because Pope Francis is arrested, maybe Jesus would come. because it would be a miracle. Number two, but also told me something that you need to know. How he deal with corruption. He told me in 2002, that, you need leadership. And so on the corruption thing, zero corruption. One, this one he didn't tell me, there's a particular minister who was doing business, merely doing business. And Obote got to know Obote was furious.
How would you do business when you're a minister?
When you're a minister, and part of the concern about that minister, he said the minister liked money, but the minister was a business person elsewhere actually before he joined the Liberation. He was one of the ministers who basically walked walked to Moshi Unity Conference from the front line inside Uganda, and from there they came back to liberate Uganda physically. But this is
who is that?
A top diplomat, Paul Mwanga.
Paul Mwanga.
Yes.
Okay.
And so Mwanga had his own business and things, and was a diplomat for. So, but it was quite.
He was business oriented.
He was business oriented naturally, and you can't sort of blame him. But I'm making this point to tell you about his mindset about nation building and things like that. But then Obote told me that, Joe, you need, for avoidance of doubts and because of perception and politics, he said, in the two times Obote was president, he said no member of my close family was allowed to have a bank account abroad.
Outside Uganda?
I found that very impressive, yes.
And the reason was what?
He
was a dictator.
No. You want to make sure that people around you don't take advantage of the position of yours.
They hold.
And maybe also to be tempted, But number two also shows that you want to lead by example.
So are you saying Obote had no account outside Uganda?
No.
Obote had no bank account?
No.
When he ran to exile, how was he surviving?
Oh, he always struggled. Obote suffered. But when in exile, because when Obote was president, he didn't know me. I was too minor as yet for information. So I joined Makerere University when Obote had already been overthrown. So sometimes some people think that maybe I was in government.
You did not work in his government?
I never worked in his government, and I've never worked in anybody's government in Uganda. But I worked in local government in UK.
In Makerere University, you joined on self-sponsorship or government scholarship?
Makerere University, my time, you walked to Makerere University, and government paid your fees and everything. Hey. And in Makerere University, the only people who get second tier is what they call them non-residents. So people with certain cut-off point, you become non-resident, but you still got allowances. You get attached to a hall, like you're attached to Mitchell Hall, but you don't have a resident space there, but you get allowances to stay out. And then when you can negotiate, you keep monitoring if there's accommodation that becomes available, somehow you go in. But university education under UPC, as part of the 1964 education reform, 2 years after independence, was fully free. All education in Uganda after senior 4 were completely free. All education in Uganda for technical or any other after P7, if you decided not to go to O-level but to join nursing, technical, or joinery, whatever, it was all free. So the only education under UPC administration which was subsidized, not free, but subsidized, was primary education and O-level education. And Obote told me this, that look, because they are committed to total universal education, and they recognize that education is the number one equalizer, and education is what would change Uganda, and education is what would change Africa. Government needed to invest in this new nation and this people and this capacity. And at the center, at the heart of them is what he calls the youth. That's why I say the UPC is the part of the youth, the part of women, part of the workers, meaning workers, and the part of the peasant, meaning ordinary people there. And in all those four, you would see that whether it's peasants or workers or students or women, there is something that government practically did to turn around
for you.
Yes.
Everybody had something.
Indeed. And the pillar for that was what he said, that at independence, we saw Uganda's enemy after independence as threefold. Enemies of Uganda was not NRA or opposition. Enemies of Uganda was ignorance, poverty, and disease. Ignorance, you need to beat it and destroy it.
Education.
To education. Poverty, the broadest thing in terms of emancipation, agriculture, jobs, and industry, and expanding the economy, including where at independence, only 12% of Uganda's economy was controlled by indigenous Ugandans. At independence, that's extraordinary. But within 3.5 years, we had expanded that by nearly 25%, to 35%.
What did you do different from Amin?
Expansion of the economy. Basically, you create an enabling environment and to dismantle the privilege of private capital, dismantle privilege of foreign interests, meaning the Asians and then Europeans at the time, and then enabling capacity, meaning opening up indigenous banks, opening financial institutions, as I said, provision for incentives, including tractor hire services, meaning cheap tractor hire services, opening up cattle dips like the ranches in Ankole, which has been predominantly taken by a few people. No, because Ankole is a good example. The ranches in Ankole, which have been taken by a few individuals, those are public spaces, but they're open because Ankole is a cattle corridor space, for people then to go ahead and you use one for grazing, two cattle dips, meaning that you don't have to pay for medication because for cattle. So you government enabled you.
Even us in Toro, we had one. I don't know whether you know Rovona Stock Farm. Have you heard of that?
I've heard about it, but
Rovona Stock Farm.
Yes.
That was taking care of Toro region.
That's correct.
Today, some powerful person in the first family went and here he took it over, and now when you go there, it is private business happening.
So the ranches in Ankole, in Toro, in Tororo, across the country, they built cattle dips, including my own place, Toro. So basically, farmers knew that you take cattle through these things to kill deep, tick, and things like that. So you enabled the cotton production, as part of a historical thing. You get fair prices for your cotton through cooperative unions and things like that. You can borrow money, open up, as I said, banks, open up cooperative bank, open bank, Uganda Commercial Bank, enable people to then to begin to invest and also save, and then, as I said, opening up housing projects to support people of low income. Basically, that's what you do to create wealth and to enable the citizens.
Okay.
And so,
Mr. Ochieno, very good. The president has finally rethought and is bringing you closer to that involvement that you are missing now. Number one, last week he declared he is bringing services more nearer to you by way of giving you district. You have been agitating for district status. Some of you even ate rats, live rats, in your own area, in request for a district. He has offered you that. Why? He believes, just like you were mentioning, you had better services during Obote's government. He's now doing that through bringing the district nearer to your nose, so that all services come to your homestead. He has actually ordered for the division and provision of Tororo as a city. He's making Joseph Otieno's district now, village now as a district. Mukuzu and Namulanda district, Mukuzu district, Namulanda and Tororo city. You complain again. He has already taken care of your problems. You are done. Finished. You are going to have the best school in the neighborhood. You are going to have the best health care in the neighborhood. Because now, when you talk of a bigger district, you'll have to ride a bicycle about 20 kilometers to reach the nearest hospital. Now, when he gives you a district status, that district hospital, you find it is a kilometer away from your home. It means this parish development model now, it will be managed at the district which is near you, and now the parish and the village is near you. So what are you going to complain about? You're done, finished.
Which one is your home district?
Bunyangabo.
Bunyangabo. How many hospitals does it have? Public hospitals. How many public hospitals does it have?
One.
A hospital?
Bunyangabo was cut out of Kabaroli. Yeah. So our regional hospital referral was Uhinga Hospital in Sokoto. So when they cut us up, They
built a hospital for you?
I'm not even sure that they built. Things had been there, but
I don't know that there's a hospital built in your home district, because I generally.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure that it was built, but it had been there. It's attached to the CPS of Nyangabo district.
Okay. No, the breakup of Tororo, and you're a Pan-Africanist.
Yeah, sure. 911
is completely contrary to the values and provisions of anybody who associates with the global Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is very much about African identity, African personality. It's about, the emancipation of the African peoples and bringing all of us
Unity
together.
of Africa.
Yes.
Unification of Africa.
Yes, and if it's about that inclusive, it cannot include cutting Africa down like sweets, like the colonists did us, and we're still struggling with these colonial borders. And to suggest, therefore, that the best way to achieve the provision of public services is through creation of districts is again bush economics.
Bush economics?
Yes. Because Tororo was once upon a time the most cosmopolitan district in the country. Tororo, which was the region of Bukele. It included Palisa, it included Mugwere, it included Karen Potaleja, included Samia, included Pavola, which is a region of Tororo. All these places have been divided on identity lines, linguistic lines, tribal lines.
Hey,
yes.
Tribal?
Yes. So the Basami...
Yet we are fighting Africa to be one.
There you go.
Africa must be one country.
Tell me that your man is, your man in this context, the man that you think I criticize for nothing, Mr. Museveni, is not a hypocrite. If he uses the word Pan-Africanism, next time I'm near him, I'll request that he withdraws the word I'm a Pan-Africanist, because he's not.
He's dividing people on tribal lines.
Yes.
Instead of uniting.
Yes.
But when people are demanding, what can he do?
That's not how
you have reached the point of eating a rat.
That's not how you govern. That's not how you govern. You've got fantastic children.
Should he leave you to eat the rats?
You've got fantastic children. I've seen one. Because one is blackmailing you over whatever. Just so, yes, son, whatever. Go and play with funny things, Just because you're tired. Sometimes I know us men can be very terrible, with children. Because they're crying, then you want to you want to calm them down by giving them. You can't lick sweets. You can't lick sugar because you can't bake them to juice and things like that. Okay, you can. Of course, children will enjoy sugar, but sugar is terrible for them. So no. Busia does not have a new district hospital.
Now they're going to have.
Budaka doesn't have a new hospital. No, those are districts that were given 20 years ago. Busia doesn't have a district hospital, new hospital. Palisa doesn't have a new hospital. Butaleja doesn't have a new hospital.
Butaleja is also a district?
Yes.
Hey.
Yes. Where Emmanuel Dombo comes from. All those are part of original Tororo. Now, the hospital in Tororo that was built under Obote 2 in the original Tororo district is actually Busolwe in Butaleja district. Now, under the first UPC government, we were able to build 22 new hospitals in 8 years. That included Kriadongo, Kagadi, Abim, Butaleja, Busolwe, Bujiri, and you can go on and on.
You're the ones who built this road, this what is it called? I normally hear a lot of accident victims going there. You just mentioned Kiriandongo.
Yes.
Kiriandongo Hospital.
Yes, that's right.
You don't know who built
That's
it? I
correct.
thought it was this regime.
No, this regime doesn't build, it destroys. That's what I was telling you. And I've got evidence, and that's one of them. So the hospitals that were built in the 60s, today go to Bujiri. Remember the member of
In
parliament?
government was Mulago built?
Mulago, the new Mulago under Obote too. The old Mulago was there at a Corona time. But what happened is that you can take Makere, for example. My Micho Hall was built under Obote. Lumumba Hall was built under Obote. Apparently, isn't Nkrumah or Lumumba? I think Lumumba, Nkrumah was built under Obote. And most of those, the main library and most of those staff accommodation. Housing units like Bukoto, Bugolobi, and many others. All these are crossed.
Not Amin?
No.
Not Amin?
If Amin complete some of them, the structure that he found down there. But they basically...
Because you didn't go the credit to Obote.
No, because these are foundations that exist at the time. You see, Obote extended the rail network from Soroti to Lira to Gulu to Pakwash, including the Pakwash Bridge. Now trains don't exist. You see what I'm saying? National Agricultural College. So I'm saying that's what governments do. Now you don't need to create a district in order to do that.
Hey!
That's my point. You don't.
I thought you need that district.
No.
By creating it, it brings...
No, next time if you're invited to Chankwas, you don't go because it can easily mislead because there's a propaganda of Chankwas. That's not true.
Hey.
No. Hospitals don't need districts. Roads don't need districts, okay? Schools don't need districts. Agricultural services don't need districts. Cattle dips and cattle ranches don't need districts. Education opportunities don't need districts. A friend of mine that is right now somewhere in West Nile, he came from West Nile in the senior P7, then went to King's College, Budo. And then from Budo he's now one of the most powerful doctors around the world somewhere, kind of stuff. It's education that turned him around, but he was a son of for him I think there was they're not particularly bad, but he said by the time after his O-level, there's no way in which the parents could have afforded school fees. Now talk about what he told me that as part of the 1964 Education Reform Act, government took over all schools that existed at the time. The idea is that a school like Mount St. Mary's Namagunga remains a convent school, but government, the same curriculum, government gives you capacity, adds more dormitories, but then a child from a Muslim or a Protestant, any child will go to Namagunga so long as you meet criteria, and you're not supposed to segregate, and that's what happened. I'm a Catholic. I went to Pusoko College, Mwiri, which is a Protestant-founded school. That's what governments do. In Mwiri, there are two halls that we include. Mwiri, they boast, they call them halls rather than student accommodation, the halls of residence, they take from Mwiri, rather than dormitories. So, they build presidents' hall, courts, built a new library, French club, specific A-level for, So I went and saw these things that had been built about 10, 15 years earlier under Obote One administration. So you're expanding education. You go to Toro College, St. Peter's, the main building, Obote One kind of stuff. Toro girls complete new schools, Wanyangi girls complete new schools, Nabisuza girls complete new schools. Verenyanji, most of them, Verenyanji Express completely new. Nyakasura, I think, but I don't know because I don't want to say what I'm not particularly sure about. Yeah, but part of Nyakasura, some of the halls those must be dormitories in terror school because terror schools are difficult guys. They can't still in halls and behave like the way they have. So maybe some dormitories in terror school. So all the schools had this addition injected by government. You don't need districts. You see, now. The quality of education at the time, Bukedi was amongst the best, which was Toro. Bukedi was the best in 1970 primary living exams. Bukedi was the best, followed by Karamoja, by the way. And then after that, I think it was Teso. And then the next one, I think it was Kabari. It was something Kigezi in terms of education performance. And worst performance, I think, was East Mengo. West Mengo, East Mengo, which is I don't want to, But these things are there, these figures are there. about schools and system at the time. I remember when I was in my primary school, in fact, St. Joseph's in Agongera, the old school was a category. What do they call these red things? The red brick thing on the roof? Tiles. Yes, the colonial before independence, the colonial tiles. Because St. Joseph existed as an old Catholic school. But in Obote too, they added a new P7 class block, a headmaster's office, a store, and an area which is a dining hall. School hall, and people use it as dining hall. Completely new and built. That's what governments do. You don't need a new district for that. Now, from the time Bukedi was broken, nothing has been added in an old Bukedi. Now, come to then Tororo. The dispute in Tororo was, the recent Tororo was the agitations by our friends and relatives from Teso, because many of these guys are relatives, including Ekanye, who nearly committed suicide. The boy nearly committed suicide. He wrapped up himself because he wanted the district. Now, Ekanye's mother is a Jap. Ekanye does not speak Teso.
Hey.
Ekanye's mother is a Jap. Ekanye does not speak Teso. Ekanye comes to the National Assembly because he wants to prove to quote these voters, that I'm really, really with you, I want votes. What nonsense is this? So, the Teso community, who founded the Padola community in Tororo, and they came in as a minority, predominantly from Mumias and Kenya. When the rest of Uganda started being divided into tiny little gerrymandering districts, people started saying we want. So Busia says we can be whatever we want an administrative unit, because people see this as job opportunities, and so it was a pleasure thing to give them. Basically, that's what happened. Then Palisa maybe want to get out with here, then I can get carved out into the greater Teso, things like that. And then slowly it continued, and Museveni was saying yes. But Museveni was not saying yes. Museveni was nodding, yeah, I've got them. One, I divide them by two. They give me extra parliamentary constituencies for women, affirmative action. And two, once you create a district, maybe you add 1 or 2 constituencies, and the money in the treasury is not my money. The money in the treasury is poor Irumba's money, and his son and son's children who are going to pay for it. So I don't care about it so long as I get the pleasure of today. And so Uganda gets divided into Swiss, Toro gets divided into Swiss. Now, the Teso guys begin to say that, look, we are a minority, so we are being threatened, so we want to cover on. Now, as I said, how do you divide Ekanya? So one of Ekanya's leg you bring to Nagongera, then the other one you take to Mukuju. There are many people called Onyango, there are many people called Obo in Mukuju, who are basically Teso, but they're using Jap names. What do you do? There are many people who've intermarried over a period of time. Then the most irritating thing is that now you find somebody in Tororo, and they're Teso Tororo, and then you greet them, and I do this deliberately, internally, something like that. And then the person doesn't want to answer in the Padola. That's your language. You need to know that. You need to know that.
He no longer belongs to this community.
Some very, very cheap, silly thing. Look.
So he feels that he's in a foreign land now.
But it's I think to make a political point.
Yeah.
And now, I told the late Paul Etienne, so part of the issue is the absence of leadership. Away from Mr. Museveni, I think there was also quite clearly an absence of leadership in Bukedi, in Tororo at the time. When this agitation started, the Teso community needed to have a leadership that emerged, and like a parent who does not give children sugar to lick, to tell them the sugar is bad for you. We want community here. What are the underlying issues? The thing was that maybe they're not getting enough jobs, they're being disfavored, and they're being marginalized. All of that has been proven by evidence was not true. That if you look statistically in terms of jobs in local government at the time, it was not necessarily true. Number two, in a private sector environment, it's neither here nor there. It's basically survival of the fittest. And then number three, if the other community look down upon you, there is this tendency for many Ugandans to say that Buganda look down upon other Ugandans. Simply because Buganda is the largest identity, Buganda is the most sophisticated kingdom, Buganda by and large has been the most successful kingdom. And I've told some of my Buganda friends that actually many other Ugandans are almost envious of them. Now, you do that with the pride, but you also do it with responsibility. Responsibility which Buganda has in many cases manifested. Buganda in Luwero became the second most cosmopolitan district in Uganda after Toro at the time. People came to Luwero from everywhere, by Rwanda, by Nyankole, by Chiga, by people, some of our means relatives, some of my own fellow Jabs. People came and settled in Luweero in Buganda's land, and you settle, you acquire land, you acquire wealth, you continue there, you begin speaking Luganda. Some of them even acquire Luganda names and clan names. The Ochieno that was buried the other day in Tororo even became a chief, a local chief down there. And they hadn't been in Buganda for over 10 years. No, there was an Ochieno called, it was called Ochieno Kwaka. He died. So the oldest Ochieno, no, that's the Ochieno. No, Daud Ochieno was from the Kabaka, the late Kabaka's friend from the north. So that is leadership from majority. Now for us, the minority, as I was trying to argue earlier, does the Rumba and Ochieno now begin to claim that north of Kampala, because there's a particular constituency where we are all strictly non-Baganda, we want to call this Republic of Toro and Tororo Limited, Uganda Limited? I think it's simplistic.
The northern connection in Uganda.
Yes. What was missing, which people forget, is that when law and order breaks down, when economics becomes dirty, you see how I was playing with my tea here, and thank you for your tea once again.
Thank you.
Once I take the tea, you bring a loaf of bread, and we are now three here. And, we are guaranteed lunch elsewhere. Maybe we already even had breakfast elsewhere, and then this is just for us together. And then yesterday we had a meal. Maybe me, I even want to boast and fast because I want to keep fit, kind of stuff. The loaf of bread is neither here nor there. In fact, I haven't told the guy I didn't want bread. Let me just use it as, So he gave me some fantastic omelette, Spanish omelette from here. But if the three of us had not eaten anything for the last 3 days, if there is no guarantee of lunch, and we definitely know that it's unlikely for us to have supper, the three of us, there's not a tiny little bit of one loaf of bread that will remain. But most importantly, it becomes worse that one loaf of bread and we're now 5. There will be scrambles, common sense. So it's the resources. When somebody chased me to exile, Tororo, then Bukeri, was the second most industrialized town in Uganda. Tororo is now a slum. With the section of Uganda Tororo Cement, which is now in the private hands, in the hands of some dubious Asians, I'm told in partnership with some people in high places.
Tororo Cement?
Yes. So the thing's neither here nor there. Do you get it? Those are the fundamental issues. Now, where are we?
As we wind up.
The grievances happened, then Mukuju was given a district because they asked for it. The rest of Tororo did not ask, the Jibadola did not ask for a district. And initially this guy said Tororo belongs to them. I think that was defeated on the basis of evidence. And then you say, okay, if you want to break off from Tororo, break away. They were given a district in 2005. They refused to take them on that. Somehow, until recently, the other day, Museveni and Lupo have a meeting with these people, and then some deals were brokered. These guys accept the district. And then the rest of the other Toro gets Mulanda district and mine area, which is now I'm homeless.
Now Mulanda district, it means Ofonopondo is.
No, but it's not Mulanda, but it's actually Mulanda.
Ofonopondo comes from
Mulanda. It comes from Mulanda. It's called Mulanda, not Mulanda.
Not in Mulanda.
It's Mulanda. Yeah.
So it's going to stand for MP there.
I don't know. Ofonopondo is standing for, not giving me advice, but say Ofonopondo is standing for empty for the elderly.
He had started with the elderly, but when he had the news of the new district, I am told he's changing his mind.
Maybe that would be interesting, but I was last with him a few days ago, but I think he was still discussing the elderly. But no, fair enough. So but that's their district, so they could do that deal. Now, Tororo City.
Why are you not standing, Mr. Chair?
I am still considering what exactly is going on. I wouldn't say I'm not standing. I am.
You are likely to.
I think the number of people have asked me because Nagongore is
I'm also asking you.
Nagongore is a municipality.
You're a friend guy.
Thank you. You're being very generous to me for the first time since we started this interview. If you had told me like this and you're nice, I would be smiling all along in this interview. Maybe I would have been nice to everyone else.
No, when you're here
but that's very generous. No.
When you're here in the interview.
No, you're a fantastic guy, always. Look, no, so Nagongora gets a municipality, which is my home. And I have the view that whatever the historical and the circumstantial background of where we are, the reality is now we've got a new district. And if Nagongora, which is my home, because my zone is basically where Nagongora is. So it's important, and as I say that even before the parliamentary breakup, I had already started having conversations with some young people from Nagongera to tell them that they need to get much more interested in the local council, which was equivalent of Council 3, and make sure that Nagongera does not develop into extreme slum. So I'll use some of my local government experience to support the process for the municipality. I am not remiss. So whether or not I stand does not matter, but I'm much more committed, very committed to making sure that the new Nagongera town takes shape, at least with some of the values that brought me up, some of the values that I picked from Wiri and Makera and other places, including my work in local government. So that's a work for the future. Finally, though, as it happens, that apparently, while Tororo gets a city, Tororo district is not named. And so people are saying that there's Mbara city, there is Gulu city, there's Mbale city, there's Photo Tourism city. So what happens to Tororo and where does the other district die? But most important, because Tororo was one of the original 39 districts in the Constitution, do you kill it? So that is part of the legal argument which is taking place. My view is that I hope that Tororo, but if it is held back because it will antagonize the other side, then you can see how simplistic we go. It's about our interests rather than strategically thinking about our future.
Thank you so much, Comrade, my elder Joseph Ochieno, senior leader at UPC. Now UPC seems to be having three factions, one led by Mr. Ochieno Joseph, the other being led by the man in the incumbency, Zima Kena. His secretary is also my friend. The secretary of Zima Kena is my friend, a Bill friend. He's a good man. And the other one, is Walubiri still...
actually...
Is Walubiri still having another faction he's leading?
No, my argument has always been that there's an Akena faction, which is quite legitimate. Then there is a Walubiri faction, which derives leadership from Malaro Tuna and from the court ruling. And I don't call myself a faction. I'm too big for factions in UPC.
Okay, there are three heads in UPC, all of them claiming leadership.
Yeah.
They are you okay, Bit?
Yeah, they are okay.
Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure being with you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for always giving us time, and thank you so much, you, the viewers, who are actually making meaning of this show. Please, I can ask you to share these shows, like our social media platform, subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Spy Television. Go and read our stories on The Spy newspaper, the online version of this television. Follow us on our other social media platform. On TikTok, we are there, Andrew Rumba Live, The Spy Uganda, Pan-African Pyramid. We on Twitter, we are there. And the Pan-African Pyramid also YouTube channel. You will find all our views on those two alternative channels. My name is Andrew Irumba Katsabe on The Spy Uganda. On the Pan-African Pyramid, I'm the speaker of the Pan-African Parliament, the People's Parliament. Till we meet again. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.